Janet Love is a commissioner at the Electoral Commission. She joins us now. Ma'am, good evening to you and thank you for your time. What does this pledge mean for political parties? What have they actually pledged to do?
Thanks very much, Stephen. I think that the pledge goes a long way to making political parties aware of the context within which the Code of Conduct has to operate firstly. It's a pledge that recognizes that it's essential to have free political activity. It's essential to enable voters to have the ability to hear the different opinions from political contestants. It's part of the context of democracy to ensure that we have elections. That's essential for democracy. And the context is really saying that proactively all contestants have to build that context. And so the pledge goes beyond simply saying what candidate acceptance forms require candidates to accept, that they will abide, they will uphold the Electoral Code of Conduct. It goes to really saying they will reinforce this culture of tolerance. They'll ensure that we proactively work against any no-go areas, and that we don't take up, we don't speak in a way that can provoke and inflame intolerance.
If they break the pledge, what options do you have? I mean, what action can be taken against them?
Look, there are a couple of things. First of all, I think that the first thing that the Commission would very much want to be doing is to be ensuring through these processes that the parties and their leadership sensitize their members. I think the second thing is that the Commission has often engaged one-on-one with different political parties and leaders to actually identify some problem areas, some problem issues, in the hope that these things can be resolved without resorting to any other kind of measure, including litigation. Obviously, if there are things that we believe are sufficiently egregious, we do need to take that further. Now, the Commission doesn't have adjudicative powers. The court has held very clearly that interpreting the actions to whether or not they constitute breaches of the Code of Conduct is something that is in the province of the courts. And so in many instances, unless courts have ruled on things and there is already a precedent, I suppose, in other instances, the Commission would approach the Electoral Court in the first instance with a complaint, with an issue that we believe that they need to rule on and give us and the country guidance on.
Is it up to you? Is it up to someone else to lodge an objection? So in other words, if one of the parties, one of the candidates or a leader or someone does something and someone else is unhappy with it, how does that work? I mean, do you do something proactively, or do you have to wait for someone to complain or lodge an objection?
So there is a combination. First of all, I think that certainly we would say to all political parties and contestants, and in fact even other role players, that the Electoral Court can be approached directly, and I think it's there in order to deal with certain matters of this kind. Secondly, if we have a complaint and we believe that there is enough of an evidentiary basis to support such a complaint, we would then look at taking it forward. But I think the third thing is, as you've indicated, even without a complaint, if we have a problem that has reached a level that we are unable to resolve it in any other way, we are quite able and ready to take things directly in order to ensure that we do get clarity and we do get action. We have in the past had action. It can include not just a fine, it can also include ensuring that somebody, well, not ensuring, but taking a decision that somebody, a contestant is not eligible any longer to stand for an election. So there are those kinds of possibilities. But, you know, our hope is that we don't have to resort to any of those kinds of measures.
All of these can be really difficult decisions. I mean, they can be very contentious, and I think it's in the nature of politicians sometimes to, you know, push things a little bit, let me put it like that. I mean, are you worried that you might actually face more difficult decisions in this election around issues relating to the pledge than you've had in the past?
I think that it may well be the case for a number of reasons. First of all, there are more contestants and there are new issues that have arisen in these elections. And there's also a very heightened awareness, as we've seen in terms of the increased number of people who have registered to vote. So in general, the atmosphere is a lot more vibrant and intense, and with that would go an increase in the number. I mean, in this week alone, we have a number of court cases that we are dealing with. But I think the second reason is also that there are certain things that really do need to be addressed and are, more I think are much closer to everybody's consciousness at this stage. And one of the areas would be the issue of vote buying. It's not as if it's a new area, but it's certainly an area that still needs some definition. And in the context of the fact that this is the first national and provincial election where the Political Party Funding Act is in place, obviously that becomes more of a central thing for people to think about and for us to ensure that there's clarity on.
We know, of course, that Umkhonto we Sizwe has already gone to the Electoral Court. They're appealing the decision made by the Electoral Commission in response to a series of objections to the candidature of former President Jacob Zuma. As I understand your reasoning as the Commission, it is because the Constitution, which I think has fairly clear language on this, which says that someone cannot be eligible to stand for a position in Parliament or in fact any other legislature if they have been convicted of an offence and sentenced to a term of more than 1 year in prison without the option of a fine within the last 5 years. I think part of this and part of the case made by MK, perhaps not in their papers, but I think in public it will come, is that you made a comment about this in the beginning of January, or towards the end of January rather, in which you were quoted as suggesting that Zuma would be ineligible. Do you regret that comment?
Well, first of all, I think this is a matter that is before the courts, and I think the papers of the Commission traverse that issue. It certainly wasn't a comment that I made and in the manner that it's been attributed to me. The only thing that I have clarified is what the procedure would be in relation to objections and what the considerations would be for the Commission were any objection to be raised. But I do think that this is something, Stephen, with due respect, it is in the hands of the courts at this stage, and I think we should respect that process, certainly as the Commission that we do, and I don't think the Commission has at any stage, not one single Commissioner, certainly not myself, has sought to single out any particular issue in a manner that would prejudge. So let's leave it to the court, but that's certainly something that we hope will be deliberated on quite soon.
Janet Love, ma'am, thank you. Commissioner at the Electoral Commission.